Let me read you a passage from the 6th chapter of St. Luke's Gospel, verses 39 to 42. It's the Gospel for Friday of the 23rd week in Ordinary Time. St. Luke writes, Jesus told the people this parable. Can a blind man lead a blind man? Will they not both fall into a pit? A student is not above his teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like his teacher. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, "Brother, let me take the speck out of your eye," when you yourself fail to see the plank in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the plank out of your eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. That's from Luke chapter 6, verses 39 to 42. What does it suggest to us? Well, many decades ago I attended an address given by the editor of a leading tabloid in Sydney. He made the point that the church is news. And of course, news is what the tabloid markets. The tabloid is a marketer of news, and its sales depend on how attractively its distinctive product, the news, is packaged. Many categories of news are of immediate interest to the public: the financial state of society, tragedies and mishaps, natural disasters, the outbreak of war and its progress, and so forth. There is one category of news which, I have often noticed, is especially seized upon by media outlets, be they tabloids, serious newspapers, television and radio media, and that is ethical issues. A flagrant violation of law in society rivets the attention of the public, but what media professionals especially delight in is the investigative reporting of unethical or immoral practice, which may or may not be criminal behaviour as such. While the church has been news, what is of greater interest to newsmakers is ethics, immorality and secret crime. But further things can be said about this. Firstly, failures in ethics and morality are not regarded as sinful. The question of sin is deemed to be a purely private and subjective issue. There is crime, immorality and unethical behaviour, and this must be brought to light, and all delight in doing so. But there is no sin, because sin involves God, and God is a matter for each person and is not a public fact. It would be a laughing matter for the media to accuse a politician or political leader of committing a serious sin. But it is no laughing matter to accuse a political leader of unethical or immoral behaviour. While sin is just a joke, ethics is most newsworthy, and the public love soap opera presentations of ethical misdemeanours. That is the first point to be made. The second is this: while people readily condemn others for moral failure, if this comes to light, few accuse themselves of moral failure, let alone of sin. There is a perennial readiness to denounce others for their imprudence and moral lapses, but it is a rarity to see someone with an abiding sense of personal fault and sin. That is to say, we are quick to condemn others, but slow to admit our own fault to ourselves. One thinks of the scene in the Gospel of St. John in which the religious leaders brought to our Lord a woman caught in her immoral behaviour. Moses condemned such as her to stoning. What did he, Jesus, say? They wanted to catch him, but their action illustrates the tendency of man to avoid admission of personal sin. Our Lord replied that the one who is free of sin was to be the first to cast a stone. The way he said this, and what he then did, somehow conveyed to each the fact of their own sinfulness, for they left one by one. They readily condemned evil behaviour, but were blind to its presence in themselves. It took our Lord's words to unmask it, and the power of the accusing conscience did the rest. They retreated from the scene. It reminds us of the very beginning, when, having sinned, Adam and Eve hid in the garden from the sight of God. They were afraid of the anger of God, but interestingly, they were still reluctant to admit their sin. God said, "You have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you not to eat." And what did the man say? The man said, "The woman you placed at my side gave me fruit from the tree and I ate." The woman, whom in any case God had placed at his side, was to blame. "What have you done?" God asked the woman, and she too avoided admission of sin. "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." Man will dodge, if he can, the accusation of personal sin. His conscience, clearly echoing the voice of God, is most powerful in its judgment of guilt. Man shuts the door to that voice and puts himself out of earshot. He prefers to be deaf to it, all the while condemning wrongdoing in others. All this illustrates the pertinency, the relevance of our Lord's words in the Gospel of today that I read earlier. They are relevant to every place and every time. How can you say to your brother, "Brother, let me take the speck out of your eye," when you yourself fail to see the plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. It has often been observed, and the Second Vatican Council, quoting Pope Pius XII, also made the observation, that the sin of our age is the loss of the sense of sin. We have become blind to our sinful condition. Of course, man in every age struggles to see his sinfulness clearly, but in our age the denial is especially forceful. At the heart of the fault is the denial of the objective and ever-present fact of God. There are no sins, there is only immorality, and it is the other person who is immoral and unethical. This blindness must be overcome, for at the heart of religion is the acceptance of one's true condition. On this basis, we can welcome our Redeemer with heartfelt praise and gratitude. And on this basis, we are best able to help our neighbour too.